Hi, everyone. This is Rich Becker with Zora. I want to welcome you all to our webinar today. It's going to be a good topic, some good topics today, talking about Internet of Things and monetization strategies. And we're going to be fortunate that I will be walking us through some of the material today. I'm at Zora. I run our IoT solutions and strategies here. I'm going to walk through the story a little bit, but I'm fortunate, and we're fortunate to partner up with PTC and the ThingWorx on this. And Chris is joining us. So Chris, I want to take a minute to introduce yourself. Give us a quick overview of what ThingWorx is, and then we'll jump into the agenda.
Great. Thanks, Rich. Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining today. My name is Chris Kuntz. I'm the Vice President of Ecosystem Programs for PTC, really responsible for partner programs within our IoT segment, focusing on building out our partner ecosystem and shaping how we work with our partners that are using the ThingWorx IoT platform to create value for our customers. So when we talk about monetizing the Internet of Things and strategies around that, PTC has a great strategy around smart connected products, building on its legacy of providing product and service advantage for manufacturers. And we have a great opportunity in front of us with the Internet of Things. So today we'll be talking about best practices, strategies, and technologies that are making an impact on IoT, specifically how companies are creating value. And for some context, we'll be talking about the PTC ThingWorx platform, which is a revolutionary new IoT platform that's really designed to help companies rapidly build and deploy IoT apps to drive value. And as we go through the presentation, we'll share some of our strategy and how customers are transforming their business using our platform, using monetization strategies, and the Internet of Things in general.
All right, thanks, Chris. So the agenda for today on the screen, I'm going to talk a little bit about subscriptions, and then I'll hand it back over to Chris, and we'll talk about how the stories come together. I think it'll be a great topic. Also, I want to mention to folks on the phone, feel free to write some questions. At the end, we're going to leave a little bit of time. We'll gather up a few questions and do as best we can with a large audience of responding to those. So look for the Q&A window at the bottom of your screen. So let me start by talking about Zora just a little bit. And I know some of you know Zora, but a lot of you don't. So we're going to go through just a real quick overview of what Zora is. So Zora is a SaaS-based platform that we refer to relationship business management, which is the idea of taking subscriptions and monetizing those processes and procedures to get your products and services to market. So what I want to do is I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, to talk about why subscriptions are happening. And it starts with some data and what's happening in the world and the shift that's occurring from the number of people who are potentially on the web and looking to buy and purchase things via the internet, and the number of subscribers that are out there. So we've got a lot of data that talks about, basically billions and billions of subscribers, 6.8 billion subscribers out there. And then the other shift that's happening is the way people are buying products is the idea that the product is of course important, but that they're going to spend a lot more money on access to that product and the experience that comes from that product. So we're seeing these shifts happen really across the globe. And then with that comes new expectations. So consumers today want a more personalized experience. And that personalized experience, I think you could define by being personal, which means that you understand who that person is and what they do. It's real time, in the sense that if I want to buy a service or add something, I want to get that real time. So that immediate fulfillment and gratification, ongoing value, and then memorable services. And these are, in a sense, lofty goals, but these are the things that consumers want. And those companies that are harnessing that are able to really show much better margins and relationships with their customers. Now, that said, that is not just a B2C, and a lot of times we think of our consumer lives and how we use our iPhones or those things in our personal lives, but it really is happening in every industry. So, consumer goods is the most obvious one, whether it's a Spotify for how you would listen to music, or potentially how you might use Amazon to go and buy things for your personal life. But it's also happening in technology. So let's say technology or cloud-based services. We hear terms like there's two types of software companies: those that are SaaS and subscription-oriented, and those that are dinosaurs. So we're seeing software companies, new and old, all move to the web and move into SaaS-based models. Entertainment. We think about the HBO story that recently came out. People don't talk about it a lot, but HBO is now offering their miniseries and things like that in a direct-to-consumer model. Why? Because maybe running that through a cable company is not the most profitable model for them, but also maybe because they want to better understand the consumer. So we're seeing it, a lot of those things in media, which is great for me because I like a lot of the HBO miniseries. That aside, healthcare. Healthcare moving from capital goods-based models to models which are more pay for what you use. Then we got the Internet of Things in the middle. Now the Internet of Things, we're going to talk more detail about that, but that's kind of a catch-all, maybe not so much of an industry, but a technology that's driving lots of changes in all of these industries that we're talking about here. What do all these industries have in common? Well, the winners are delivering a subscription experience. And that means the subscription experience is that personal, real-time, immediate fulfillment experience, which means that, as you buy a product and you maybe change or add to the capabilities of that product via that subscription, that's a journey that you go through with that person. A good way to think of it, and this is a little bit technical in a sense, is that the subscriber, to understand a subscriber, maybe we can get a little bit to understand the data behind that subscriber. So first of all, if you think about a traditional record of what a CRM system might consider that person or that company would be a person or a company. You might know their email, their phone number, what have you. The subscriber record, indicated across the bottom of the screen here, is a little bit different in that we're going to understand a lot more about that person, what they purchased, what products they buy, what analytics might be relevant to that person, and we're going to gather that over time. So it's a journey that you want to go through with that subscriber. On the right side of the screen there, I put some asterisks next to some very particular use case items that you might associate with a subscriber record via an IoT connection. Things like usage metrics, where you can, for that subscriber, understand outcome-based billing. What did they actually use the product for? What should my bill and what should my offering entail? Add-ons. What do I provision for that person? Don't treat everybody the same. Provision things that are appropriate for their use case and their usage. We're going to talk a lot more about this as we move through this, but it'll give you an idea of how the subscriber record and those IoT data can drive an individual experience. So behind that, what would a system look like to manage that? And this is a piece of the total system, and what you'll see when Chris presents is that we're heavily dependent upon each other to drive the final solution. But from a Zuora point of view, we talk about RBM, Relationship Business Management, consisting of commerce, billing, and finance. And commerce being the idea that you create an offering, billing, the idea that you're going to get a bill through the system, and finance being the ability to update your systems. Now, just to get a little bit tactical, like kind of who cares about that? Well, if you look at some of the transformational processes that entails within your company, you might think about the different forward groups within the company that might have a look into the relationship business management kinds of things. So like from the marketing side, your chief marketing officer, and these are kind of ways to think about it. In a subscriber world, in an individual relationship, you need to be able to change pricing quickly, right? So we talk about 5 clicks to change pricing. Imagine if you're a global company and you need to do that all across the globe. We have examples of customers who change pricing 4, 5, 6 times a year, and we need to be able to do that really quickly. You want to send bills. So the bill, which is the result of what somebody chose, if you're changing pricing and offerings all the time, then the ability to create all those bills becomes a process, an expensive process in the company. So we want to automate that. We also want to make it seamless for the customer. CFO, we want to shorten the close. So all those manual processes, we need to make sure we update our general ledger quickly with all those individual offerings. And then the last one, which to me actually kind of relates to the first one, is on one hand I want to change pricing. On the other hand, if I want to launch new products, I want to have the agility to provision different offerings to customers based on their journey with me. So if they buy this product and this service and this software, and maybe they want to add a few other additional components to it, I want to be able to provision that through the system on an individual basis. So these things, if they live dynamically, can create a lot of flexibility and business opportunities for your organizations. So just back to a little bit of relationship business management before I hand it over to Chris. is I talked about commerce. So commerce being the ability to create that product catalog, quotes, guided selling. How are you going to make some offers? And I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail in a second, just to give you some thoughts on that. The billing process, which is not the most exciting thing to think about, but let's face it, we've got to do that. And then on the finance side, the finance and the billing, they'll really love the fact that you can automate this. And in an IoT world, it's super important to get those models out into the market as quickly as possible. So when you deploy it, I think it's a super important concept to think about two ways to deploy the commerce side of a solution. And the first one would be to integrate it with your CRM system. So depicted here would be integrated, say, with Salesforce, for example, but any CRM system to say, my salespeople, when they create a price in a B2B or in B2C, well, mostly we see this more B2B, I want to take my catalog and my offering and allow me to create that quote for that individual customer. But it's also important to think about that once I've created that product catalog, I might want to make those offers available in multi-channel, so directly through an iPhone, a tablet, or what have you. So that deployment would be effectively not necessarily including a salesperson in the process, but have the consumer and the company manage that relationship directly. I want to talk a little bit more about this when we get into some more examples. And then I want to make it clear on the back end, those finance and billing functions, those integrate with things that you, as a company, you're already doing today. You already have likely an ERP system. We're not replacing general ledgers, those kinds of things. So we'll work with the SAPs and Oracles, and your payment gateways, taxation, provisioning, those kind of things. If you have a provisioning system, we work with those to enhance the existing capabilities. So just that's kind of a quick overview of the Zora story. And we're going to get more into the IoT portion of this. But what I'm going to do now is hand it over to Chris and talk more detail about IoT.
Thanks, Rich. So the Internet of Things is really transforming every industry. Rich talked about the value in recurring revenue and how that's impacting the customer experience and how every industry is shifting towards a subscription economy. All of these concepts are critical for driving value in the Internet of Things and the wide range of industries that IoT is impacting. And for those industries that are being impacted by IoT, the shift is becoming not only true but necessary for companies to maintain a competitive advantage. So when we look at the emergence of the Internet of Things, every industry is being transformed, and we're just at the beginning of understanding the economic value. According to McKinsey, they're estimating as much as $6.2 trillion in global economic value that's going to be generated by IoT over the next 10 years. And Gartner states that the manufacturing industry is going to capture the greatest amount of this value. And so that's where manufacturers come into play here, because products are already beginning to be designed to automatically transmit information about status, performance, and usage. And all of those things are critical in driving new business models and in driving different models of revenue within the space. And we're just at the beginning of this explosion of smart connected products. Sometime during the year 2010, the number of smart connected things surpassed the number of connected humans on the planet. And many leading industry analysts are predicting that number is going to grow to 50 billion by the year 2020 and over $1 trillion by the year 2035. So the IoT is being driven from this explosion of smart connected things and smart connected products. And these smart connected things, or these smart connected products, they're being introduced with new capabilities. And that's really the key for this conversation today, because these capabilities provide the framework for how companies are creating value in this IoT economy. And I'll walk through a few of these here. The first is monitoring. So it used to be where physical proximity was required to determine the condition of an asset. Now we can determine that condition or the environment that asset is operating in remotely. So a great example is the Biotronic pacemaker, where connectivity allows a physician to remotely monitor a patient's heart condition versus being on site. And now this company is positioned to move into selling home health monitoring as a service. So a great example, very, very simple case of remote monitoring. The second new capability is control. So like monitoring, we used to need proximity for control, but now with the Internet of Things and connectivity, we have remote control for both configuration and operation of smart connected things. A simple example is the Doorbot remote doorbell where you can control access to your home if a UPS driver comes up. So that's pretty useful, but more powerful is remote control when you're talking about fleets of machinery or factory equipment or excavators in a mine shaft where true value can be realized. And the third is optimization. So optimizing the performance during operation, optimizing uptime, automated software upgrades, or really changing the behavior of an asset in operation. And the fourth is autonomy, where products can act alone or in coordination with one another. So great examples of this, a smart factory or precision planting system for smart farming, where connected tractors are coordinated with sensors in the soil to change fertilization amounts in real time. And so these capabilities play a key role for driving business value, where in a lot of these industries where the product itself is becoming more commoditized, it's going to be value-added services that are based on these capabilities that are going to set companies apart. And we'll go through some examples of that in a bit here. So to state this really simply, the nature of smart connected products and their capabilities is causing value to just be redefined. The composition of products is shifting. The dynamics of the world in which products live is changing. How people consume value is evolving. We'll give some examples of that. What we mean by product versus service is changing. And really how manufacturers are creating value and how that value is being consumed by customers is fundamentally being redefined. And so clearly the product is changing, but the real points here are the way the product is creating value. And there's three important and relevant ways that smart connected products are causing and creating value in new ways. The first is how we create value from software. A great example of this is a car, where a typical car on the road today contains somewhere between 10 million and 100 million lines of software code. Now, that's important, but obviously the physical attributes of the car are important as well. You still need a chassis, tires, and a windshield, but with software and with products becoming more intelligent, it gives us opportunities to monetize and deliver a richer customer experience. And the second major shift relates to where we actually put that product software. Do we embed it in the physical product, or do we put it in the cloud? And this impacts not only how those products are created, but the operational aspects and how value is delivered, and ultimately revenue is achieved through the customer. So this helps create a more customized product experience and helps how product enhancements can be delivered. So in this example, the Bose Wave Radio is a great example here, where a lot of the operational aspects of the product, for example, the songs, are delivered through the cloud and not on the product itself. And the last is how value is exchanged between manufacturers and customers. And this really comes down to a business model question. New business models that are made possible by the fact that these products are smart, these products are connected, and most companies, in order to differentiate themselves, must change and shift from selling a product to selling a service. So when we roll this together, the emergence of smart connected products and this new set of capabilities, it's really creating value in several distinct ways. First is improving customer experience, and Rich talked about this a little bit as well, but the ability to leverage data from connected products for improved service, improved support, and improved usability. So being able to proactively monitor a product and identify issues and fix it before it breaks. It supports better uptime of the product, or better visibility into the control and operation of that product, ultimately a better customer experience. The next one is optimizing business processes. So a great example of this is remote service to optimize and reduce costs within your operating environment. And then the ability to create differentiated offerings. So increasing the pace of product and service innovation. If hardware is just a commodity or under heavy competitive pressure, how can we deliver new value through software and through services to essentially be able to charge more for that product or for that offering? And that leads to the last one here, is new revenue streams. So being able to unlock completely new business models and realize new value-add opportunities as a result of the Internet of Things. So what's required to make this happen, and how do businesses actually take advantage of this and capitalize on the value? Sure, it starts with the existence of smart connected products, but the redefinition of value and actually creating that value, it requires an entirely new technology infrastructure. And we call this the IoT Technology Stack or Solution Framework, and it starts with physical products. These physical products must be enabled to be not only smart, but smart and connected. And then there's a variety of communication mechanisms that must be addressed: wired, wireless, and using a variety of protocols and machine languages. And on top of this, this is where we look at IoT platforms, which provide several key features: communication elements, business logic, storage, APIs for accessing data that's collected from smart connected products, and the ability to pull this all together. So at PTC, we call this the product cloud. But you can think of that as a virtual representation of physical products and how that product interacts with the business. But it doesn't stop there. So when we look at smart connected products, it's not about necessarily the communication or collecting data, it's what you do with the data. And that's where application enablement comes into play. Applications in the world of IoT really unlock the value in the data that you're collecting by allowing companies to utilize that data in the context of the business process, such as remote service, consumables replenishment, and pay-per-use billing. And what we provide is several application building tools that make it easy to drive value through applications. And that's where we get to how this solution framework can help support your monetization strategy. So PTC's technology stack provides solutions at really every level of this framework, from our products like PTC Creo that helps companies create and enable products, to PTC Windchill, which offer capabilities throughout all phases of a product lifecycle, and then finally the ThingWorx platform, which really provides that middleware, secure connectivity, and application development tools to deliver complete IoT applications, complete end-to-end IoT applications. And it doesn't stop at the applications. With PTC and Zuora leverage on top of this framework, companies really have the ability to leverage that product and machine data in the context of a business process and to deliver new models of commerce, billing, and finance, really truly creating value in the Internet of Things. And in this framework, the ThingWorx platform that we have is really purpose-built for the Internet of Things to make it easy for companies to build applications and applications that are tailored to their specific needs and delivered through subscription services. So a great example of the value in the platform is our ThingWorx marketplace. So think of that as an app store for the Internet of Things. Rich will talk a little bit more about the app store model later on here in this conversation, but really it's allowing our customers and our ecosystem of partners and customers to extend the value of our platform and how we facilitate interactions between producers of applications and consumers of those applications, doing that through an app store model. So I want to turn it back to Rich here to walk through some specific monetization strategies. But to recap, Internet of Things is transforming every industry. This is being driven from an explosion of smart connected products, which have new capabilities. And what that's doing is that's causing value to be redefined. And so capitalizing on that value requires a new technology infrastructure that's based on a platform that's really purpose-built for service-generated revenue. And so I'll walk through a couple of case studies here quickly. First example is Joy Mining. So Joy Global, Joy Mining is a great example of the value of smart connected products. So Joy started with PTC's ThingWorx platform several years ago to connect all of their mining equipment and using that in a way to anticipate equipment failures, so making the products more smart and connected and delivering better uptime. So as they progressed in that quickly moved beyond basic service to operating the mine more effectively, having people access the data on how the mine was performing, being able to give feedback to the people on the ground to improve processes. And what was interesting here is they are now moving into a consulting services model to help mines operate more efficiently. Equipment downtime, reduce the cost of resources, mine safety, and using that smart connected product infrastructure built using the ThingWorx IoT platform. So in essence, they've changed from being a product company to being a product and service company, offering value-added services in addition to their products. Next example is All Traffic Solutions. So All Traffic is a leading manufacturer of digital street signs. You've probably seen them. These are the street signs that are on the street when you're driving too fast through a 30-mile-an-hour speed zone and it blinks at you. So a few years ago, they understood the competitive nature of these street signs, and it wasn't just about selling hardware anymore. So they started working with our IoT technology to not only connect those signs, but capture valuable information and data on some of the important features of the products. And what they realized was how valuable that data was to municipal police agencies and citizens, really around traffic patterns and optimizing traffic flow. And so today what they have is through the IoT platform, they are not only offering hardware products, these smart street signs, but also a subscription-based software solution, an online application for police agencies to better manage their business, a traffic portal, if you will. And this software is generating more revenue for them than the hardware business, so they're becoming more profitable. And it's just a great example of how smart connected products can really transform business models for a company. We also have a variety of use cases where customers are charging for smart connected products based on usage. For example, medical devices based on the number of successful tests run, or for industrial equipment, the amount of power produced. And a great example in the smart agriculture space, as the world population grows, food shortage is a critical topic. So the ability to optimize a farming operation is huge. So from a business model standpoint, charging farmers in a subscription service model, they're charging differently based on an irrigation program that is optimized for water savings, in driving value and cost savings down to the customer if they are smarter about how they're irrigating their crops. And this is all possible through connectivity and through the smartness that we have in smart connected products. And the last case study here is Smooth. They are a French developer of bikes and bike sharing systems. And so Smooth has been a PTC customer for several years using PTC Creo and PTC Windchill for the design and the development of some of its bike components. So with the ThingWorx IoT platform, though, they're able to incorporate sensor systems that are placed on the bike to control usage and behavior. So they're collecting usage data that can be shared with the city and city administrators to facilitate really better access and placement of bike stations. So this ability is really allowing Smooth to continue along its innovative business models of providing a value-add IoT service based on technology. So those were just a few examples of customers that are leveraging IoT technology, leveraging the PTC ThingWorx platform and a subscription service model to transform your business.
Great. Thanks, Chris. So let's go. I'm going to walk through some case studies and some monetization strategies. So one of the questions I get two questions in my life commonly. One is, what do you do? And the other one is, well, what should we do first? In other words, what are our strategies? And so I'll start with my first one, where I talked to my 12-year-old kid about, well, what do you do for a living? And I said, well, I work in the Internet of Things. And he's like, well, what's that? I'm like, well, it's everything. I mean, so you sort of look around and you go, okay, well, so I always try to think of an example I can tell my neighbors, because they all kind of look at me. I said, well, what about a connected home, right? So I start listing off all the things that the Internet of Things is impacting in our lives. And I do think back to the Jim Heppelman article in Harvard Business Review, where he talks about, him and Michael Porter. It's a good read if anybody can look that up. Jim Heppelman being the CEO of PTC, by the way, and Michael Porter at Harvard. They go through and they talk about really being one of the biggest transformational things in our lives. So in what areas? Well, connected home, connected car, connected consumer devices, and connected industrial devices. So lots of stuff going on, lots of areas where companies are looking to make some changes. So what do you do? So the next question to my second question, which is, what are the strategies that we should look at? And so I talked to a lot of customers, and I came up with these four areas, these conceptual view of what a lot of our customers are doing. And it's not the only way to think of it, but it's a way for customers to develop and companies to develop some strategies where they can begin to monetize an Internet of Things type of product. And so let me just kind of walk through these and give a little bit of process examples on a way to think of it. Because there's some transformational thinking that has to occur when people look at their business model, and it can be really big and challenging companies to look at. So the first area would be a box strategy. So the idea from this actually came from someone here was saying, like, the comment was, why don't we just take all of our stuff, put it in a box, and sell it on a subscription? And I'm like, you know what, that's a great conceptual way to think of it. And then we had this idea of a small box and a big box. The difference being a small box are more simplistic products, like maybe a gaming device that might have some service and some software that you could sell, where the product itself is not terribly expensive, but the combined cloud customer experience is really what you're selling. We're seeing a lot of small box type of models come out. And then you have this kind of big box, which is a similar concept, but in a big box world, you'd have a more expensive piece of equipment, the more in the industrial area, where that capital good is actually going to have some costs associated with it. So maybe you would still sell, have a purchase for the equipment, maybe not, but certainly things like service, consumables, these things could exist in a subscription or usage-based model. And one of the things that a lot of folks talk about is optimizing the selling and distribution channel for things like service, selling of service, and consumables. Can we use IoT to track those usage metrics like Chris was talking about and use that to drive an aftermarket program for consumables and such? I'll talk about that a little bit more, but that's what we're talking about here. I'll give an example of a medical device company here that's really a great way to think about what companies are doing. In the old way, where you would have a manufacturing plant and you would take capital goods equipment and you'd sell that capital good equipment to the field. You'd sell them the equipment, you'd sell them service, training, upgrades, and what have you. And somewhere along the way, your customer would say, or someone in the organization would say, we should think more about a cost per test or some improved flexibility model. And if we did that, we could optimize our supply chain and how we're actually selling, as well as how our customers are experiencing the product. So what we would do is then probably take that in a new way. That capital equipment would move into the cloud or to some other location or be somewhat irrelevant to the selling process. And we would allow that customer to connect via a different way. In this particular example, there's a less expensive device that allows for the customer to connect to do some genetic testing. But this could be anything. It could be an iPhone, could be lots of ways to think of it. The point being that the customer is now connecting and passing data through the cloud, and the capital good from a manufacturing and selling point effectively is replaced. And in this example, what was interesting and from Life Technologies was that not only did they change the customer experience, but they found when they did this that more customers could actually have access to the products. And the customers actually felt more like themselves in the process. So if you think about the new experience, first of all, if I'm paying for a cost per test, if I'm a hospital, I have a different use case. I could be 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, mission critical. So my service agreement and such has to be very specific to that. If I'm an educational institution where I'm doing this for research, I might have different requirements. So here I'm given an option to be treated like an individual. And then the other way you bring new customers in is for those customers who never had access to this system at all can now actually have access. So if I'm in the middle of Africa or if I'm somewhere else in the middle of nowhere where I can now maybe have the ability to do some genetic testing and save lives. It's a great story, and there's some writings on our website if you all get a chance to take a look at it. So that's the box strategy, which is heavily focused around physical products. So the second one, Chris talked about this earlier, the App Store strategy. Now, this one is a little bit different in that the assumption is that an app or a collection of apps has value to the end customer. So, in other words, if I buy this app or I have this app and I want to add this, I can put all those together and string those into a customer offering. And as I add those apps, my pricing strategy changes, my back-end strategy could change, because it's possible that me as a company, I don't own all of those apps. I may have third-party apps. So how do I pay those companies for those third-party apps? In the ThingWorx world, they have an app store, which is a creation of apps for people who've created apps for other customers. So then those become a marketable item. That's one way that apps exist, much like the Apple model that we're also familiar with. But then there's the General Motors type example where OnStar is effectively an app that rides on a device that's already been created in the car. So what gets added to that? And if you talk in general about the connected car, it's a little bit unclear how that's going to develop as a market, but you have the basic connectivity charge. You then would potentially have an app for a hotspot. Let's say you want to now make the car a hotspot. Well, who's going to charge for that? Is it the OEM or is it somebody else? But that's an additional application effectively with a hardware dependency, of course. You then might have other apps like a service app. So how do the service people, either through the OEM and the dealership, collect data off the car to make a decision, or is there an app that goes to a third-party dealer, a third-party service organization that could be part of that as well? And what if you're a fleet? Let's say you have a fleet management application where I want to know where my vehicles are and I want to do tracking and I want to integrate fleet management. So if you think about the car example, which is something we can all relate to, there's several apps that can get strung together into a customer experience. Each of those in and of itself should be and could be provisioned based on consumer demand or company demand. And the pricing model and how those are deployed would actually be something that would be individual to the individual consumer. So that's the App Store strategy. By the way, I always forget the other thing I should mention on the App Store strategy. It overlaps a little bit. A lot of companies and I talk to PTC a lot about this, where if you design for IoT, if you designed a product for IoT, you can use applications to turn functionality on and off on demand for a company. So that could be something else that would be part of that, potentially the App Store strategy. So anyway, next one, and this is again, maybe could be a subsection of some other topics. This is the aftermarket strategy. And this I think you can think about it two ways. One is I've already sold a product, and I'm now going to offer a service that's going to expand my customer experience. That's what the NCR type of example. This is the NCR Silver program, which they've already bought equipment, and now they're going to buy, so they own the hardware, now they're going to buy cloud-based software to enhance the value of that and other things they do within their retail environment. That's one example. And the other one would be if I'm selling warranties. So extended warranty options are great ways to use IoT and connected products to develop better warranty options. Warranty, the problem with warranty is people churn because they're never quite sure what they're paying for. But if you could have a customer-specific aftermarket program that included warranty, potentially with a box strategy maybe, it could be a really interesting way to come up with one-off programs for customers, a very customer-centric view of that. And what enables that is IoT. IoT collects the data, tells me what my customer is doing. I now use my subscriber identity to understand who they are. Together I create that one-off solution. The last one, and arguably the most complex one, is a data strategy. And this probably, I could see this overlapping everything I've said up till now, because none of this happens without the right amount of data. The right kind of data, or a data strategy in general. I think when Chris put the solution stack there, note that you've got to have some way to connect and collect that data. The application layer can be probably developed and such, but you've got to have this. So what is the data strategy? Well, the data strategy really comes down to a couple things. First of all, I like to separate small data and big data. It's a concept that I think is important from a monetization standpoint. There's a lot of companies I talk to who could collect a limited amount of data and offer value to their customer while they're building out big data strategies. Big data strategies are very expensive. They're sometimes not aligned well to monetization, and a lot of companies want to get started a little bit sooner. So that's a good one to think about, is small versus big. The other way to think of data is, am I using data from another product in order to provide a customer experience? So the Lowe's example here, this is the Iris program. If you go into Lowe's and you have a connected home, you buy these Iris compatible devices. I will mention I was at the Computer Electronics Show down in Las Vegas, and I went to the Lowe's booth, and there was about 30 to 50 people walking around with Iris shirts on. It was an exciting program and you can see what they're doing is they're saying, hey, we don't actually manufacture the device, but if we can collect data or connect those devices, we become the data owner of how they connect in the connected home. So my security, my drop cam, all those kinds of things. They could sell the capacity and connectivity of the client. I think this is really interesting because I've long said that one of the problems with retail today is you go into a Walmart, let's say go into Walmart, you buy a bunch of stuff, you leave, they have no idea who you are unless you have the little card or what have you, but they're not really marketing. You go to Amazon, they know everything about you. Maybe to a fault in some cases, but in general, that's the trend, and you appreciate those personalized options. So data can drive that in that type of example. So it's a good way to think of data that way. The other data strategy that could be talked about here is how people would subscribe to the data. So it's slightly a derivative of what I just said, but it's a sense that if you could take an automotive company, a lot of people are talking about it. The OEMs collect data off the car. Okay, they own the data. You give them access to it when you buy the car these days. Can somebody, like an insurance company or somebody, subscribe to that data in order to make some kind of a business decision? In heavy equipment, in a heavy equipment operator like a Caterpillar or a Deere, if they're collecting all of this data and there's a mining services company, can they sell access to that data via a subscription to then run a service program? So that's another area of data strategies that's, I say, being talked about. I haven't seen it materialize quite yet, but there's definitely some investment in that area that's taking place. So another one of these examples that comes together is I'm at a company like Schneider Electric, who it's a great story about a company, 30 billion or so, who made their money or built a company around first manufacturing, then I would say supply chain. So what does that mean? That means that they manufactured products, they then acquired products, and they built out a distribution network, and they were really good at selling transformers or electrical devices, so that if you were a building contractor, you would go and buy all this stuff, and you would then put it into a building and create the solution for the customer. Effectively, Schneider became very good at managing catalogs and making data available to a building contractor or someone who's then going to go build a building. Well, they're standing and looking forward and saying, well, wait a minute, maybe we should connect all of our products. And why do we do that? Well, if we collect all of our products and we buy some software components, we can now better understand the customer solution before that contractor, that building contractor, is going to go ahead and create that solution. And if we do that, we can actually find have a better solution for that customer. So making a move to moving a significant amount of revenue that direction. And then one of the things they needed in order to do that was all the connectivity things that we've talked about, which is fairly complex, but also one of their executives, and noted at the bottom of the screen here, was saying, in the old days they would just sell SKUs and create invoices. Well, in the new world, we got to create an invoice for each customer, and that invoice needs to relate back to the customer solution. So everyone's going to be potentially different, potentially usage-based or based on an individual customer situation. So with that, we actually got through that in a fairly reasonable amount of time. I think we're on time. We've got a little bit of time to take some questions and talk about some follow-ups. And I wanted to mention here on this last slide, a good way to talk more about the subscription economy and those kind of things is at the Zora user group, which is coming up in this May. It's on our website. It's May 20th and 21st. There's an IoT-specific track that I'm going to have a lot of customer speakers, and I've said this 1,000 times. Our best people to talk to are our customers. So people like Schneider are going to come out and speak. Arrow Electronics are going to come out and speak. PTC is going to be speaking on our behalf, and a few others will come out and be talking about IoT. And interestingly, the same month, Chris, you have an event as well.
Yep, so May 4th through the 7th in Boston is ThingWorx. So that's a very IoT-focused event. It's featuring some groundbreaking technology demonstrations, some great keynotes from industry experts and business leaders and customers that are really sharing their story on transformation and creating value from the Internet of Things. So as Rich described, it's a great way to hear it right from customers on how they are creating value with some of this technology. So with ThingWorx, I think there's over 50 business and technical sessions, everything from hands-on developer boot camps to detailed customer case studies and conversations with industry thought leaders. So it's only a month away. Great opportunity. Both of these are a great opportunity to learn more and get in front of customers that are actually experiencing this firsthand.
Great. So we've got a couple minutes here. I got a couple of questions that came across. I'm going to try to consolidate these in my mind as a little mind merge here, but they seem to be around a common thread, which is around deployment. So the first one, I will paraphrase. So guidelines or recommendations on how to get started. I think what we've outlined here maybe looks a little bit complex and has lots of layers and such. What are the best practices and what are the ideas for getting something going, maybe to prove a concept before taking too much risk? So I asked the question, Chris. That means you get to go first. What do you think?
Great. Yeah, so we talked a lot about IoT and monetization strategies here, and there's a lot of factors involved, right? There's the data strategy that we talked about. There's the connectivity strategy and the connectivity factors that are involved. There's, we talked about smart connected products. There's heterogeneous devices, that are out there. Where is intelligence? Is it embedded in the product? Is it in the cloud? Do you want to create an open or closed system? If you want to change your business model, how is that going to impact the various stakeholder groups within your company? So, when you look at all those things, customers really need to focus on their core business and how their business model changes, not on the underlying infrastructure that's involved. And that's why this platform concept in the Internet of Things space is so critical to accelerating time to market and really helping companies get started. So starting with a platform that's purpose-built to solve problems around connectivity, around edge and distributed intelligence, around collecting data. It solves a lot of those problems, so it allows the customer to focus on what's their business model or monetization strategy going to be, because that's hard enough to figure out. All those other problems, what we try to do is address that through the platform, which is going to accelerate time to marketing and get a customer there much quicker. We also do, at PTC, we do these innovation workshops, which proved out very well. I think Rich just mentioned this, but you take, if you take a strategy where you're adopting IoT to transform your business, you might want to start with one or two case studies. So we have these workshops where we spend a few days with a customer to model out one or two of those case studies, so you can get some valid proof points early on, without investing too much time or effort into the full-blown implementation. So start small, start with a pilot, and certainly start with a platform.
Great. And what I'll add to that is we talked earlier about the idea of rapidly being able to deploy a commerce-based solution, and that is a product catalog that's dynamic and allows you to do some dynamic pricing. So what gets me really excited about working with Chris is he can rapidly and through best practices deploy that infrastructure. Then we can come up with a commerce solution that either is usage-based or subscription-based that can be dynamic, which means you can change the pricing and the offering fairly easily. So you can go do some market tests. I get a call a week from somebody who wants to have a new connected product, and they're like, well, we're going to connect, but we don't have time to build all this out. What can we do? And I said, well, let's get what you can get done, get it into the ThingWorx platform where you're collecting data, get what you need, and let's get some commerce ideas out there and see where it scales. So another question came across here about an app store. It's a good one, because I was sort of like, as I was talking about the app stores, the complexities are going through my mind, and the question is ensuring the validity of applications, solution updates, and legal issues. Chris, you can probably address that one maybe from the app store that ThingWorx creates, and I'll just make a comment before that. Is I'm actually not seeing. So the app stores that I've generally seen our customers talk about have been things that they own as a company, and the integration of third-party apps is developing. And some of these OEMs will bring in like third-party apps. You can think of the auto example. If they bring in a third-party app, how do they collect revenue and then run that revenue back to that person, much like a royalty type program? So we do manage some of those things, but I would say that is a highly undeveloped. In the IoT space, it's a highly undeveloped process as it exists today. A lot of reasons for that in a longer discussion. But Chris, your thoughts on your app store and concepts?
Yeah, and this is a great question and a great topic overall. So talking about the validity of applications, the nature of IoT applications are that typically they involve a connection with a smart connected product or a series of products or smart connected sensors, and integrations with various business systems, data sources, and business processes. So there's a lot of moving parts there, certainly. One of the values in the platform is the ability to standardize on the infrastructure for connectivity to products and connectivity with business systems. So we have a program at PTC and ThingWorx called the ThingWorx Ready program, which certifies and validates interoperability between third-party components that third-party products that really weren't designed originally to speak with one another. So by doing some of that integration work ahead of time and certifying products that are interoperable, and this is no different than other companies that do this. If you look at the App Exchange on Salesforce, I mean, they force you to follow certain guidelines and structures with respect to their applications. It's just much more complex in the world of IoT. But we follow the same process around validity and certification of those applications before they can be deemed worthy to be published to the marketplace. And that same process is involved in updates to that. If there's a new version of firmware on a piece of hardware, that has the potential to impact the integrity of an application. So applications must be recertified so that they can ensure smooth transition or interoperability within a customer environment. And that's part of the process that we follow with our ThingWorx marketplace in terms of the publication process and our partners building these things. And they're not just it's not a community of hackers and developers that are building apps and pushing them out there. It is a process that does go through validity and certification.
Okay, great. So another question around so the typical time frame. So we talked about ways to do. What do you think a typical time frame might be, like a deployment cycle? For some of the examples given, Chris, what are you thinking?
Yeah, so actually, an interesting case study in our world is OnFarm. So OnFarm is a smart agriculture startup company that developed a solution, Internet of Things-based solution using the ThingWorx technology that integrates soil moisture sensors with weather data and aerial crop stress photos to help farmers optimize water utilization on their farm. So it's creating a smart farm environment. It's helping global food production. It's helping impact outputs of farming operations. And so they were able to get to market with a solution that integrates multiple data sources together in a way where they were able to get to market within 3 to 6 months, which is a year ahead of time versus doing it from scratch. And that's that's sort of the value of the platform. We talk a lot at PTC here about deploying IoT applications 10 times faster, and a lot of that comes from the customer experiences that we have. I mean, it's a complex process to integrate heterogeneous devices across hybrid networks, with a variety of different data sources and business systems to drive some sort of value or create money at the end of the day, subscription-based revenue at the end of the day for that application provider. So that's not an easy task. And what we do with our platform is solving a lot of those hard problems so that again, the customer can focus on the business application itself.
Yeah, good. When you were talking, I'll tell you what was going through my mind is it's not terribly difficult to within a couple 3 months to get a basic subscription model in place. What we find actually takes also a long time is not the technology but the business decision. And I talk to a lot of companies who want to go to market with a new model. And I'm thinking of a telecom company recently that wants to sell based completely on usage. Like rather than selling modems and business connectivity, they want to sell your building is this big, this square footage, those kind of things. But it's the commitment from those companies to come up with those models and say, yeah, we're going to do this, we're going to test it, that actually takes longer. The risk to the downside is significant. So I think that's one area that can take some time. The App Store, when we talked about earlier, how are you going to handle royalties and is your product designed for different apps? Those kind of things take time. So the business strategy is a significant factor here in making that decision. So let's see. One last question here was about data. So some question. I'm kind of laughing about the data. So from a data standpoint, so complicated topic. What do we think about the big data and the data challenge with IoT as far as scalability and understanding kind of where to start and general thoughts on that? So I'm just paraphrasing the question. So it looks like a lot of people think they have a data problem. How do we go about addressing that, and what are some general thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I mean that's obviously another great question. You know, I think it gets back to having a data strategy ahead of time. You know, and thoughts around, you know, where is data going to reside, where is intelligence going to reside embedded in the product, in the cloud, in a hybrid model, and then what are the business processes that are impacting, you know, the use of that data. You know, collecting data and storing data is important, but I think, you know, one of the things is putting data in the context of something that is useful in the business process. You know, so you can collect a lot of data around usage patterns of a product or operating parameters of a product, temperature, et cetera. But some of that might not be useful unless it's put into context of another set of data. So for example, you know, it's great if a product is failing or if a customer is using a product incorrectly, but if they're not in a valid service contract, then that, you know, that piece of data isn't very useful or it's not very actionable. Or if a product is being used incorrectly and you offer, you know, trading services or their warranty is coming up for expiration, then it's hugely valuable. But it's only valuable when you set those two things in context with one another, because then you can take action on it.
Yeah, it's funny. I had 5 questions on data there, so that was the summary. But so okay, folks. So we've come to our allocated time for the day. I want to thank everybody for joining. This recording will be made available. I'll send an email to everybody that attended, so you'll have a recording here. Feel free to reach out to myself or Chris. Our information will be attached in there, and we can have follow up as needed. I think it was good. I hope you enjoyed the discussion. I want to thank you all for attending.